Hi guys, this is CJ Blink 120, and today what we're going to do is look at simple building in OpenSim. So the first thing that we have to do is open the OpenSim server, and so what I'm going to do is go into the folder where I've got the OpenSim server installed, and I'm going to go into the bin directory like we have to do every time we start the server. Now since I'm running a 64-bit operating system, I'm going to run opensim.32bit launch. If you're running a 32-bit operating system, you can just run OpenSim. So that's what we'll do. Now OpenSim will start, and in just a second it'll be ready to access. So I'm going to minimize that and then open my viewer. Now I'm using Firestorm Viewer, which is different than a couple videos ago when I was using Imprudence. There are a couple advantages to Firestorm Viewer. One being that you can actually view mesh models that you create in programs like Autodesk 3ds Max and SketchUp, which is nice. And in the future videos we'll be doing tutorials on that. But for right now, it's just going to be good to be able to view the things that we're building. And looks like we're up, so I'm going to log in. Again, first name, if you're using Phoenix Firestorm, it's first name space last name is your username, so I'm admin space user, and then you type in the password and we'll log in. And a lot of the building capabilities of OpenSim are pretty intuitive. They're pretty straightforward. You don't have a whole lot of capability for, changing the objects as they exist, besides stretching them and changing a few parameters. If you really wanted to do some advanced modeling, I would suggest that you take some tutorials in 3D Studio Max, which is an Autodesk program, and then see if you can get yourself a copy of that to do some more work with it. But for right now, we're just going to use the default prims that OpenSim provides. So wherever we want to start building, we'll right click and we'll say create or build, I think it is in Imprudence. Now up here you'll see that we have a selection of different prims that we can use. Right now I'm just going to use a small cube, and we res that cube, and it's just kind of our starting block, if you will. Now one thing that's going to be very important before we actually get started building is that kind of the keyboard shortcuts. So you've got your mouse here, but if you wanted to kind of rotate around and zoom, you have to use Control Alt and then click and then drag, and that'll kind of get you to orbit around the place where you have clicked. If you want to zoom in on an object, let go of Control, so you use Alt and then move your mouse in back and forth. Now that's going to be important when we start building bigger objects so that we can get around the screen a little bit better. Now when you're actually trying to edit the cube itself, you can use Control. If you hold down Control, you'll see you get some rotation axes, so that if you drag on these, you can rotate in the different axes. If you just let go, you'll have the movement axes. You can decide where you want to move it. Then if you use Control and Shift, you can stretch the cube, which is what we're going to do first. So right now what I want to do is kind of stretch the cube on one of the corners to make it a little bit bigger. Right? This is going to be the foundation block for our house, but it's too big vertically right now, so I think what we'll do is stretch, let's move it back down that way a little bit. Now you can use these stretch cubes, these little stretch handles, to get them pretty much how you want it. But if you want to be precise, you can go to this Object tab and then look at the size in meters. I really want the vertical value to be about 0.5, so I type 0.5 and hit enter, and that's what I get. Okay, so that's going to be kind of the base of my house here. Now let's say I want to create one of the walls. Now I want to use this kind of basic shape for one of the walls, but I want to be able to duplicate it, which is another good feature in the Imprudence and Phoenix Firestorm viewers. If you hold down Shift and then drag, you should create a new object. So that's, again, Shift click, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it vertically here. And then again, I can do rotation here, see which one's off. This one is about 274. It should be 270, which makes it straight vertical. And then I can go over here. I can zoom in a little bit and figure out exactly, how I want it to be. That looks pretty much lined up like that. Maybe moving it a little bit closer this way, and then maybe stepping back and moving it a little bit more vertically. Okay, so yeah, so that was quite a bit in the ground before we got it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unstretch it, so Control Shift, and I'm going to grab this red block and move it down a little bit just so that I can stretch it a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this for the other wall. So I'm going to Shift and drag over to the other side. Now I've got the other wall. Now let's say I want just to duplicate this, especially since the space is a square, it should be easy enough to duplicate these walls for the other two sides. That's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift and tap on the other prim that selects them both, and I'm going to Shift and drag them, which duplicates, and then I'm going to Control rotate them. Okay, and now if I move them over, probably a little bit easier to do this from the top view. Actually, I'm going to rotate them just a little bit more. Kind of hard to get them perfect, but we can get them perfect in a second. Then we'll move them over, and then rotate them just a little bit more. Okay, good enough. Now we're just going to select one of them. You can hold Shift and tap to deselect one of them. Now what I'm going to do is go into the Object tab, and we'll see that this is about 90.1, which probably should be 90. We're going to say this is 90.5, which should be 90. And this is 359, which probably should be 360. Or 0, actually. And so that kind of gives us that shape right there, and there's probably going to be a similar thing on this side. Okay, and yeah, it's the same kind of thing, so we're going to do 90 here, 360, that says 89. Let's do one more. 90 there, 360 or 0 here, and then we're going to do 90 here. Okay, so that kind of gives us that first floor kind of base look that we want. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. And now what I can do is I can make one of these slightly hollow. So I guess what I'll do is I'll choose this one. I'm going to edit and change the this, drag the hollow up a little bit. Yeah. So that kind of makes that a little bit hollow. What we can do is kind of drag this down a little bit so it looks a little bit better, but that'll be a window. Alright, and I think especially since we can fly in OpenSim, that won't be too bad of a door into the house. And so I think what I'm going to do is do that same kind of thing on the other prims that I have here. So that's a hollow value of 60. Do a hollow value of 60. And do a hollow value of 60. And a hollow value of 60. where it kind of gives me that first base thing. Now, if I have move selected here, I should just be able to click and drag. Let me get them all here. Click and drag to select all of those prims. What I'm going to do now is shift and drag up to create a second floor. And now I can do that same thing, and then select all of them. Make sure I'm zoomed out far enough. Shift and drag up. That gives me a 4-story house right now. Now I need a roof, and this is kind of what I'll work on next. So I guess what I'm going to do is deselect that, select this kind of base right here, and I'm going to shift and click and drag this up to kind of create a roof. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let me zoom in a little bit, make sure I'm getting it right there. Okay, looks good. And that'll be my house for now. Let's see, how much time do I have here? Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and texture. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is link all of these together. So now this building is completely linked. I'm going to go ahead and texture the outer walls. Cancel this. And then I'm going to select faces. I'm just going to select certain faces. I'm going to shift select them. And I'm going to texture them. And just with the default textures in the OpenSim library. Now again, you can upload textures if you want some different ones. I think that looks good for that side. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side with cobbles. And last, let's see, we have to have cobbles on this side. And then, do I still have, okay, now I'm going to select these 4. And I'll do, no, I don't think so. I might do bricks on this side. Looks like we might need to rotate that a little bit, which is what I'll do. We'll do 90-degree rotation here. That looks more like bricks. And then I'm going to do a few more repeats per meter just to make it look a little bit more realistic, and apply that. Oh, it's a few too many. We do 0.5 here. And let me just mess around with this. I'm going to do 4 here and 4 here. I mean, and it's really up to you what you want to do with this, but I think that looks pretty good for now. Then I'm going to select these 4 faces and do the same thing. Again, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to do 4 repeats here, 4 repeats here. And apply that. And that looks good. So that's kind of the first building that we make in OpenSim. Using very basic prims. We didn't even use any more of the advanced ones. Actually, let's top this off with one more thing. We're going to go with a semicircle, or semi-hemisphere, I should say. And we're going to zoom in on that because that's rather small. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. And we'll move it and kind of get it centered in the middle of the top of our building. Then a Control Shift, we're gonna move it again, get it centered, just make sure it's big enough to kind of touch all of the sides on the building. At least that's kind of how it looks from there. I'm going to move it over a little bit here. And it looks like we still might need to make it a little bit bigger just to cover everything. So that's what we'll do. Kind of make that bigger, move it over here, and we'll see how this really looks on top. Give us a better idea. Okay. And again, to kind of top this off with something more interesting. And we'll move this down a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is do something kind of cool and abstract, I think. Hope you like it as well. I'm going to do kind of a water texture. Let's do first kind of color of water. And then what I'm going to do is go to Features. Oh, actually it's Object, maybe. Okay, Features, Light. What I'm really looking for is glow right now. Let's see, where would glow be? Oh, here we go. If I say full bright and then kind of take it up like that, that's a little bit too bright like that, but maybe if I do like 0.05, that might give it a little bit better. And then if we do that, especially with that darker water, I think that'll look better. And let's do like a 1 repeat. No, that's a little bit much. Let's do, yeah, that point, like 0.5. We'll see how that works. And I think we can just do 1 and 1. Okay. Alright, and then we'll just try to rotate that 90 and see. Yeah, I think that gives us a little bit better. And then, to top it all off, we have a kind of a glowing sphere on the top of our building, which is cool. What we can do now is add a simple script, and we probably won't get into scripting very much until future videos, but I'll share some of this with you now. We're going to write simple method. We're going to say LL target omega, right? And then parentheses and semicolon. Now, this method, if you know anything about programming, takes a few different inputs. First one's a vector, so we're going to do square brackets, and then inside those we're going to say 0, 0, 0.5. And that's going to tell it how fast to rotate in each direction. So we're going to rotate around the z-axis. Then we're going to tell it the circumference, which is pi, and we're going to give it another constant. I can't remember what that means, but it's going to be 1. And we're going to save it. And it says save complete, so we know it compiled right. We're going to close out, and it kind of rotates. Now that's a little bit fast, so I think what I'll do is edit the script and kind of make it like a 0.2 maybe. Save. And that's kind of cool. Kind of a cool addition to the top of our building. So yeah, that's a little bit of an introduction to building and scripting in OpenSim. Hope you enjoyed it. This has been the 4th video in this series. So coming up in the future videos, what we're going to focus on is setting up a robust grid with several different regions, all kind of using the same robust server to contact and be displayed in the viewer. So that'll be cool. You can have regions running on different machines and have them all connected in the grid. So that'll be cool. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or you can message me. And this has been CJ Blink 120. I'll see you guys later.